Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha, you're watching Perspective. The first part of the budget session of Parliament has concluded after debates on the motion of thanks to the President's address and also the Union Budget 23-24. The session, which began with the President's address to the joint sitting of both Houses of Parliament on the 31st of January, will now reconvene for the second part on the 14th of March. During the month-long recess, budgetary allocations will be examined and reports prepared by standing committees. Both houses will reassemble on the 14th of March, as I told you, for the second part of the budget session, which will eventually conclude on the 8th of April. We'll talk about the productivity and key highlights of the first part of the session on the program today. Three distinguished panelists are joining us. Delighted to have with us in the studio Mr. Bishi, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha. He represents the BJD. And joining us virtually are two more guests, Mr. Javdekar, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha from the BJP, Mr. KV Prasad, Senior Journalist. Mr. Prasad, let me begin the program today with you. You know, the first part of the budget session is usually a power-packed one in terms of the speeches, in terms of replies that we hear from ministers, also from the Prime Minister. As someone who's been covering Parliament since so many years, what is it that you found unique? What is it that stood out for you in this particular budget session, part one?
Well, as you rightly pointed out, this is a very important segment. And I think for the government, the best part of it is it could conclude the important agenda, that is the financial business, as it has to transact in the first part of it. And now that the budget gets committed to the committees, we'll have more serious work being done in the committees where bipartisan work happens. I think the key takeaway, of course, was, as we know over the last few years we've been looking forward, is the Prime Minister's reply to the motion of thanks. And over these last few years that we have seen Prime Minister Modi, he has used this opportunity to convey very strongly how his government has done, what exactly is his vision, and put before the country the broad picture of the government and the way it is looking at issues of governance. So that, I think, has that tradition that he has started about 9 years ago has continued. That is one important aspect. Of course, the opposition, after having blocked in a way in the initial stages, they also relented to agree to the President's motion of thanks, which is a courtesy the Parliament extends to the President of India from a time immemorial.
Okay, Mr. Bishi, what were the highlights for you in this particular segment, the first part of the budget session?
The first part of the budget session is appreciated by our Honorable Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik ji of Odisha, and the budget in respect of Odisha, the government of India should make provision for budgetary allocation in regard to education, health, and the road, transport, communication, railways, etc. We want government of India is doing well during this Amrut Kal Mahotsav. But ye dil mange more. Every state wants more budgetary allocation for the development of their state.
Absolutely. There's no doubt, Mr. Javdekar, that the current government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi has brought about rapid transformations across the country. But as Mr. Bishi said, ye dil mange more. So every state wants a bigger share in this, development journey that your government has undertaken. But if there's something that you would like to highlight from this current segment that has concluded, and before we reconvene, what is it that the government can highlight as its biggest achievement from this budget session, part one?
This was the budget where frustrated opposition brought Parliament to its lowest. It was complete show of negative politics. You don't allow Prime Ministers to speak. And this has happened with Modi for third time now. We listen to them and they don't listen to us. How can democracy work? That protest was anti-democratic. And as far as Rahul Gandhi is, he doesn't bother about any parliament rule. You have to give notice if you want to take name of another member. He doesn't give notice. He has to say what charges he is going to make. After making charges, he has to substantiate with, authenticate it with material. He has not done so. It is wild allegation, a desperate attempt, and a negative politics. Now, privilege committee is seized of the matter, has given notice, because why parliament is there? Parliament is for debate, discussion, and decision. That is how democracy works. But instead of that, they full all days, they in President's address, first time two parties declared their boycott. And who is the President? President is the first tribal woman, a tribal leader who has become president. 9% of population never got this chance in 75 years. This was her first joint address to the parliament. And she made so forceful appeal and has given so many points you could have discussed, you could have asked for. As my BJD colleague is saying that they want something more. That is okay, but Congress did not say anything about it. They were completely negative. They had not given any suggestion. And worst part was that in Rajya Sabha, they didn't allow Prime Minister to speak, but he spoke. He spoke forcefully, 1.5 hours, and made all his points. And basically he said, you can do anything, but the trust of people which I have is my real umbrella.
Okay.
Is my real, and I'm backed by that. And
so
therefore,
the trust of the people is something that emboldens the government. But Mr. Prasad, what about the trust deficit that we are increasingly seeing inside Parliament? So we would expect political parties to actually sit together, even if there is dissent. At least we would expect them to raise it on the floor of the House and especially raise matters that are of public importance. Is that increasingly missing in Parliament? And as you know, the Union Minister Piyush Goyal pointed out that opposition parties are perhaps coming in with the agenda of only disrupting and not indulging in debates and deliberations. Why is that happening and how is that impacting the parliamentary proceedings?
See, I do believe that wherever politics comes into play, wherever political parties have the floor, there is bound to be some element of politics in it. Parliament is a place where I believe policies and politics have to go through a process. And eventually, the good for it emerges from the debates and discussions, as Mr. Javdekar also said. Over the years, we have seen this kind of standoffs between opposition and the government on various issues, very contentious issues. There have been issues which have bothered the opposition of the day. But eventually, parliamentary managers across the aisle sit together and try and find out a way out.
Right.
Now, this is something has been a time-honored tradition. There is bound to be differences. After all, there are different political parties having their own ideology, having their own political they have policy and the programs which are in consonance with what the party believes. So that's perfectly understandable. And we have also a lot of regional parties and other parties represented in parliament. But the primary thing is this mutual engagement and the spirit of accommodation has always been what carries the day. But something over these last 12 days, if we were to refer to, we have seen the opposition has had is what it wanted to say. It said, whether there was any informal contact or whether there was anything, we only heard reports about opposition meeting together and trying to work out a strategy. And as Javdekar ji said very rightly, the point is there are enough parliamentary tools for the opposition to raise their issues and raise it forcefully, where the chair, whether it is the Speaker of Lok Sabha or the Chairman of Rajya Sabha, has the adjudicating authority. But somehow this is lost in a lot of din that we've been noticing in the last few days.
Okay, I'll take the point of spirit of accommodation that Mr. Prasad just mentioned back to Mr. Javdekar. Mr. Javdekar, to understand from you what is impacting the spirit of accommodation that was just mentioned by Mr. Prasad, also, is the government lacking in its efforts to reach out to the opposition, or is the government proposing and the opposition disposing? What really is the case?
No, actually, we had meeting 2 days before the parliament session began with the opposition leader. Prime Minister said umpteen times that we are open to debate any issue. But in a parliamentary method, you cannot only ask for one rule to be followed, because you can discuss in president's address, you can discuss any topic. On budget also, you can talk anything. And the whole issue they were raising was based on falsehood. They said GVK has been pressurized. GVK immediately told to the press that we have never been pressurized. And I can show you, there are more than 50 companies have seen share prices going up and down to a great extent. But these are commercial things, nothing to do with government. SEBI, RBI and others are ready to look after it, and they take proper care. We have a robust system. And therefore, this was a political desperation at its worst. It was, as you will recall, before 2019 election, they started Rafale as if something has happened, because during Bofor's time, the money was paid to the middleman. Here there was no middleman. Here it was government to government contract. And therefore we got it at cheap rate. We got all the 36 Rafales now. Our power has been established. And this is the most clean transaction and defense purchases what is going on. Also defense exports and defense production. So it's a complete new approach. But they were very uneasy with that. And therefore they started saying Rafale. Supreme Court finally asked Rahul Gandhi to apologize in clear terms. I'm very sure Parliamentary Privilege Committee will do its duty, but matter has gone to Supreme Court also. And there also again,
that's right, but I think the entire concern is about the loss of time, isn't it, Mr. Bishi? For parties like you, whose elected representatives would want to raise issues of their constituency, of their people who've elected them, when precious time is lost, and we know that the sessions are held only for a stipulated period of time, when that precious time is lost, how does it impact your party? How does it impact elected representatives at large, who are not part of the opposition or part of the government?
India is the largest democratic republic country, and in democracy, dialogue, debate, discussion, deliberation is necessary.
Absolutely.
So, but to adjourn 3 to 4 days the precious session is not good for the democracy, because 140 crores people are watching us, and because scheduled caste people consist of 16% in India, and scheduled tribe is 9%. So for 25% scheduled tribe and scheduled caste communities, those who are very backward, all provisions should be made for their development. And in respect of our state of Odisha, BJD government is very clean government, very in the leadership of our Chief Minister Sri Naveen Pandey. It is a best government in India. So we have neither in opposition nor in position, but we support the development steps taken by both central government and opposition parties. So opposition party has to oppose. Opposition, that means to oppose in a democratic process.
Right.
not in other views. That should not be politicalized.
Of late, we
Opposition
are
should
also
not be
concerned, Mr.
politicized.
Prasad, this, this is something that has been increasingly being spoken about even by the common people who are watching live proceedings, that the level of discourse is hitting new lows. So, in terms of the usage of language, in terms of the conduct of the parliamentarians, that is something which is shocking the common man who is witnessing these proceedings. The question here is, of course, the concern over loss of time, and the bigger concern over the conduct of the elected representatives. So how do we address these in the times to come? We are in an important phase. The Prime Minister describes this phase as the Amrit Kal. We have envisioned ourselves as, becoming a developed nation by 2047, and all of these things will matter.
The disruptions that we have witnessed over the last 2 decades in particular have really perturbed the way which, as all the 2 honorable members of parliament have pointed out, debate discussion is very important ingredient of parliamentary democracy. Over the years, somehow all these things get lost in translation, if I were to use that phrase. And we have not been able to come to a position where we are, members of parliament have to rise to occasion. So I think we are a mature democracy. 70 years of parliamentary experience, little more than 70 in fact. We are a 70-year-old plus in parliament forms and debate. So we should have evolved much more than what we are seeing now. I guess the fragmentation of politics is probably one factor that has led to this kind of an approach inside parliament, is my observation.
Yes, Mr. Javdekar. You wanted to add something, Mr. Javdekar?
Yeah, just one sentence. That how meaningful the president's speech and the budget is for the nation. President compared what has been achieved till today, compared it with what was the progress in earlier period and now in last 8 years. And the budget has given the roadmap. We are now the 5th world's largest economy. We were 10th in 2014. And now we have overtaken even Great Britain, which ruled on us for 200 years. We have made 10 lakh crore rupees of capex. It's really important, at 3.75 lakh crore rupees to the states for capex. This is unheard of. It will take country to a new height. He has envisioned, Prime Minister has envisioned India to be the developed country by 2047. And we are marching towards this. Here, opposition should have participated, given suggestions, but instead they limited themselves on accusations, falsehood, and just Modi hate campaign was on display. That is what my impression is.
That's right, Mr. Javdekar. The fact is that when we march on this development journey, what we have to also see is that the credibility of the institution, the credibility of the parliament is not hit. And if such adjournments, such repeated, misconduct by behaviors is being witnessed by people at large, it does impact the credibility of the parliament. So in this journey, the challenge is also before the elected government to ensure that the parliament is not just inclusive, but also more deliberative in nature. And for that, the opposition's voice has to be given that space. Would you not agree?
But that is what we were ready. We said that opposition can discuss any topic. And under various rules which allow you, without adjournment, you can debate on many things. You can ask special debate, you can ask short duration discussion, you can ask anything. And on budget and president's speech, you can make your point. Where is the issue? She replied for the budget and Prime Minister replied for the general discussion on president speech. So government is ready to not only accommodate, but to reply and take along. But opposition has lost its confidence. Next year, there is parliament election. And therefore, the desperation this time was on display. And that is the worst part for democracy.
Do you think, Mr. Bishi, that Parliament is being used as a platform to reach out to the electorate, perhaps not focus much more on what the Parliament is meant to address, but more so use it as a platform for electioneering? Is that happening? And is that what is leading to a lot of these uproars that are happening in both houses?
Actually, this speech of our Honorable President of India, the first travel woman in India after 75 years of independence, it was praiseworthy. And people of India are proud of it. And people of world also proud for Honorable President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu ji.
Absolutely. You know, I've interviewed a lot of foreign delegates who visit India, and they've all hailed it as a milestone. The election of President Draupadi Murmu to the top post, and also the fact that our democracy is very inclusive in nature. It's for the world.
Actually, really, because particularly with the travels of India, proud for him, proud for her, and travels of world, 50 crores, about 50 crores travels of world are very proud for our President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu ji. We are very happy also, and travels have got an opportunity, and they have some aspiration, they have hope that our travel women reach the topmost position of the country in the world. So to interfere in her speech, which was so nice, which was for the development of the country, development of all, it may be scheduled tribes, scheduled caste, OBC, general, minorities, all community. Her speech was very excellent, ever. So it should not be interrupted. Discussion, deliberation, dialogue, it should be continued. In the democratic country, it is necessary, but to oppose the speech of President of India is, I think, not so good.
So how do we get over this and how we ensure that the next part of the budget session is seamless and is more productive, Mr. Prasad? What do you think, and in fact, what are your expectations from the second part of the budget session? This one was a very short one relatively, and whatever was discussed, in fact, every party participated in the discussion on the union budget, also on the motion of thanks. But going forth, the next session, the second part is going to be a longer one. And if this kind of difference continues into the next part of the session as well, we will perhaps see more adjournments.
Well, that is something we can't predict as of now. But there are two things members of parliament would like to take part in budget discussions, because that is the key. And I have noticed the change in tax by the opposition, change in strategy, when they actually, after 2 days of adjournment of the motion of thanks, particularly in Rajya Sabha, they decided that this is the best platform, as Mr. Javdekar also said, to say what they wanted to say.
Right.
Use the opportunity to air issues which they wanted to raise, and they got sufficient, they were heard across. Whether one agrees with them or not, the opposition's points of view and the government's point of view or the ruling party's points of view were all debated or all put forward for the people to judge themselves. That being said, I think the second part will be crucial. Of course, the government has the numbers. So in Lok Sabha, there will be no problem at all for the finance bill, the most important component of the budget session to sail through. Rajya Sabha, of course, I think currently what looks like a standoff between between the chairman and the leader of opposition. I'm sure the chairman in his wisdom has already met leaders of opposition, and they'll find a way out of this.
Absolutely. Let's hope, because the next session is also going to be extremely important. Let's hope that it turns out to be productive, and the standoff that that we witnessed in the first part does not actually linger on till the second part of the session as well. So that having been said, I'll have to wind up the program. Thank you, Mr. Prasad, Mr. Javdekar, and Mr. Bishi for joining us on the program today, sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers. And to you, viewers, thank you very much for your time. I'll see you same time tomorrow now. Take good care of yourselves. Keep watching Sansad TV.